Okay, so I made a video about how King Saul did incorrectly in this situation, but I want to make this video, which is probably gonna be a lot shorter, of how Jonathan, his son, handled the situation. So, in chapter 14, verse 24, Saul makes an oath that curses anybody who eats before evening, before he has taken vengeance on his enemies. And so then it says, they all were in the forest. They came to a forest, and honey was on the ground. And then it says, but no one has put it to his mouth, for the people feared the oath. But Jonathan, verse 27, but Jonathan had not heard his father charge the people with the oath. Therefore he stretched out the end of his rod that was in his hand, and dipped it in the honeycomb, and put his hand to his mouth, and his countenance brightened. So there's a couple things here. First of all, it's something, when it said, and there was honey on the ground, I was reading somewhere and they said that this obviously was God's provision. Like, honey isn't something that is out, you know what I mean? Like, so, everybody knows bees make honey, and they make it in honeycomb, and it's very secure normally. Like, back then, the only way you would even get honey is like somebody had to bust a honeycomb open, or if it was like in a hollow tree, like the bees got into a hollow tree, somebody had to bust it open, the bees attack, and then eventually leave and go start somewhere else, and then the honey is available for whoever wanted it. And a lot of times they said the bees died that way, obviously, because you're attacking their home. So they, later on in life, they created a more better system as to how to collect honey. But back then, somebody was just busting it open, grabbing some honey, getting stung or whatever. But honey was on the ground, and it doesn't appear that there's no bees. And so this is when I was reading a study, it was saying this is how God provided this honey. The honey was readily available for them because he knew that they were weak and they were on a journey to attack these men, right? So God provided this honey for them. It was available for them, but because Saul had said that they couldn't have any, they missed his provision. They missed God's provision. But Jonathan, who didn't hear what his daddy said, which is funny, like, that's his dad, and he was like, anyways, he didn't hear what he said, though. That's what he said. He didn't hear the oath. He just knew, like, he must have thought, like, oh, look what God provided for us, because it was just there, as readily available. Grabbed his rod, got him a little taste of honey, and then it said that his countenance brightened, so his face lightened, like, so he probably was feeling all like too, even though he didn't purposely starve. They probably all was just hungry anyway, because they're on a journey, and it said his countenance brightened because he had that honey. So, like, that's another reason why how God provided. Like, when you're uplifted after receiving something, then you know that God provided this for you. He knows what you need, and he's going to provide. So after, obviously, he ate the honey, the one of the people were like, your dad said y'all curses the man who eats food this day. And then, but Jonathan was like, my father has troubled the land. Look now, how my countenance has brightened because I tasted a little of this honey. How much better if the people had eaten freely today of the spoil of their enemies which they found. For now would there not have been a much better slaughter among the Philistines. So he was saying, like, if y'all would have ate the honey in the first place, it would have been a better fight, because y'all would have been stronger, y'all would have felt better, and then the attack on the Philistines would have been greater. There would probably have been more of them knocked out. So not only did Jonathan not partake in the craziness of the people eating the meat with the blood, he was already feeling better. He had already had what God had provided. So you can imagine, he went into battle feeling great, doing what he had to do. And that's the other part of the story is you have to use discernment, knowing when you're under bad leadership, and knowing when God has provided for you. You have to know those two things in order to continue on in the battle, whatever battle you may be facing. There are probably going to be a lot of instances where there's bad leadership, and this doesn't mean that they're necessarily bad people. They're just not in line with what the Lord is saying. So you have to use the Holy Spirit and use your discernment, and don't miss what God has set out for you. He set out provisions for you, even in this bad leadership, even under bad authority. You take heed and make sure you receive what he gives you.